Good day with the Shadrach Safety Institute National General Certificate in Occupational Safety and Health. This lesson corresponds to Chapter 5 of your textbooks. That's Chapter 4 NGC 1. A moment, but if you have Chapter 5, measure just have not been here before, to leave a comment, right? The comments are what we're going to write. So all students in the National Journal Certificate Saturday class, it is signed. You can simply say something like, crystals here or rose, right? So just give us an idea of those who are present. Piece, right? You can slow it down. You can fast forward. You can look at the, let's get into this one. We have active and reactive monitoring every single slide, but really doing it. So chapter 5, trying to get the slides to just do what it's supposed to do there. So we would measure performance, or at least the heading in the chapter, measured performance. So why measure performance? And again, this is typically for the safeties. At the end of the month, what they would normally do, they would normally compile what has happened for the month, right? And for those of us in safety already, we would normally refer to this as what is called as a KP, right? So why do they do that? Why do we measure performance on a monthly basis, right? So performance is measured by a combination of reactive and active monitoring techniques. Reactive monitoring generates data about health and safety performance, right? So just to kind of give you the idea of this, it's saying then that if you measure your performance on a weekly basis, and of course the companies will do that on a monthly basis as well, it will let them know what the level of performance is and why the performance level is as it is, right? So there's a need for measuring performance, otherwise they may not know if they are meeting their required goals then. So once you measure, you can get to see what the level of performance is, and then if it's not where it's supposed to be, why wasn't it where it should have been anyway, right? So measuring health and safety performance helps to reveal how well or not an organization is meeting its health and safety objectives. What are health and safety objectives? Something to aim for. If it were there for chapter 2 on policy, this could fall within policy as well, right? If you miss policy, it is actually on this same YouTube channel. I think the heading for it is recording 10. So if you want a review of the chapter on policy, you can look at the additional videos we have, and you'd see recording 10. You'd see Homer Simpson on one of the graphics that is being used there, right? Again, those videos are quite different to this one, because this one, as you can tell, is unedited. We are not editing it. You all are seeing all my mistakes. You are seeing everything that is happening live anyway, right? I mean, to edit the videos takes about an hour, and then to record takes about another hour as well. So if this is the first, right, I was just saying, right, and you want to possibly consider here the line of GC, well, not really G, really chapter 2, right? Identify some mindset, right? And this may include right. So some of these would include what a company would record at the end of the month. So for those of us who know, you know that they are right. So active stores, sampling, inspection, etc. Return to the top of the slide, includes really and truly anything that's lost time, engine monitoring, etc. Right. So what you know, right? So the question being though that is often asked is to identify four types of active monitoring measures, and about 8 reactive monitoring measures. So you can get them from this slide here, right? And again, it's on the other slides as well. But your active monitoring measures will be whatever is positive for the company, right? Or whatever the company sees as a leading indicator. So whatever could be done then before something bad happens. So active monitoring data could include things like inspections, and you'll see this on the slides coming up, right? Inspections will be considered active because in an inspection you can pick up on perhaps maybe an unsafe practice that you may probably see during an inspection, that someone may have left a cord across a walkway, somebody may have left a machine that is unguarded. So you can pick that up in the inspection, and the inspection because it is something that is something that you see before the harm occurs, it is classed as a proactive or an active means of measuring performance. So the reactive, remember the before you need to get for the exam. So the 4 active, and of course it's not all on this slide, but inspections would have been one of them. So the reactive would be the opposite to the proactive. The reactive monitoring would actually be those indicators you can pick up after something has gone wrong, and you would need 8 of those. And again, it's on the slides coming up, but I can mention probably the most common one, which would be accidents, right? So the number of accidents you have for the month would be seen as a reactive monitoring data. And again, it is reactive because it is negative, and that nobody really wants to have an accident, right? So I think I listed a bunch on this slide here. We can just get them to go. Let me see if this will go back a bit. Right? Right. So went too fast there again, right? So hopefully you have this handout, right? So the reactive monitoring types could include accident rates, accident incident reporting and recording. Typically anything that is negative, as I mentioned, could fall under a reactive health and safety monitoring measure, right? I know it's on the slides. I want to leave it till we get to it on the slide itself, right? I think I'll skip through this one. This one is just letting you know that there's a definition for an accident. An accident is defined as any unwanted outcome, product, or the environment, production losses, or increased liabilities. The HSE defines incident as any undesired circumstances or events that could have caused an accident. So a simple definition for those who don't know it: accident is what would have led to the outcome, undesired outcome. And for the incident, would of course have all these circumstances to lead to an accident, but of course there wasn't an accident. So it could have caused an accident, but of course it didn't, right? So why categorize accidents and incidents? So the idea behind this is that the more incidents you know of, the more likely you are in preventing a full-fledged accident, right? So it is important to know how much incidents you are having, because these do give you an opportunity so that they do not lead into a full-fledged accident, right? So I take a read of some of this here. So accident incident reporting and recording, it helps to improve risk control because you are identifying, the word in the corner there, uncontrolled hazards and trying to minimize the chance of them happening in the future. Need to inform, instruct, and train. So I can go back with this one, right? All persons involved. Need to encourage reporting of accidents and incidents for the right reason. you need to use a user-friendly format for reporting accidents and incidents. And again, all of those are really separate lessons. Probably, and that's not the subject of this lesson anyway, right? Need to establish a way of recording accident incident data so that data can be analyzed to help understand trends or causation. Data from accident incident recording can be represented as accident ratio triangles, right? And this is just information, really, not an exam point. I think the concept here was that if you do collect, your data at the end of the month, the reactive indicators can be shown, I guess, on a graph, right? But the best way, really, to represent accident ratio or accident data, or should we say reactive data, would be on a triangle. The reason is that you normally will get, if you look at the shape of the triangle, you normally will get more incidents at the base of the triangle, right? Whereas some companies may never have had, a fatality, a major injury, but they would be having on a regular basis near misses, right? So the idea here is that don't wait to say that you will just wait to record the major accidents or the fatalities, but begin like on a monthly basis checking how many near misses you are having, how much minor injuries. And when you plot that, and if you look at that, you normally would end up with more near misses than fatalities, right? And I guess another use of the triangle is that what it does is that it does allow you to actually prevent then the major one from happening. If you have had, knowing and investigating those, you would be able to prevent a minor injury or, God forbid, a death from occurring in the long run, right? So, no real big question here. This to me is just information to pass along to the students, right? They don't have too much of questions on this at the certificate level, right? So there's no need to learn these triangles or nothing like that. You can just appreciate them for what they are, in that you normally have more non-injury than accidents, or more near misses than you have major accidents. However, if you do investigate and solve the incidents or control the number of incidents you are having, you would be in the long run to be able to prevent, perhaps a fatality, right? Types of accident rates. So I would leave the first one out. The reason is that the most common one at the cert level is the second one, something called the accident incident rate, right? And how you get this, you divide the number of work-related injuries by the average number of persons employed by a constant, right? So I actually know they have a constant here for 1,000, but that constant could change, right, based on the number of employees you have. For example, if you have more than 1,000 employees, you'll have to multiply per se by 10,000, and if you have more than 10,000 employees, you'll have to multiply by 100,000, right? Not too much questions on these. Again, I mean, just a matter of learning the formula, the number of work-related injuries divided by the average number of employees or the number of persons employed times a constant. Now, we normally do get these at the diploma level. So in case you're worried about how do you know if it's 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000, they normally give you an idea of the number of employees, right? So if you see, let's say 500 employees, then you should multiply by 1,000. 800 employees, and you multiply by 1,000 for your constant. These things are not too much of marks. These things are roughly about 2 marks. Most of the times it's just remember the formula for exams. For those of us who are looking at this and you're not, I guess, a NEBOSH student, but you're just looking at the video as a means of information, in Trinidad and Tobago, and I suppose for the ISO standards as well, they do require this calculation to be done. STO, one of the local safety management systems we have here, do require that this be done for the companies as well, right? So they would normally do this. They normally take the number of injuries they have. Let's say it was 2, divide by the number of employees, multiply by 1,000, and what they do with the what they do with the final result is that another company's accident incident rate, or perhaps another department, let's say 20 as your accident incident rate, you would know if 20 is good or bad unless you compare it, for example, like with another company's accident incident rate, or maybe with that of a national average, if those things are published in various countries anyway. So what are the limitations on relying on active monitoring data? If you want to have a go at this, you can probably put it in the comment section anyway. Maybe if I see those comments, I have been able to go on and send some replies anyway, right? But this is a nice question to think about. It is really not a NEBOSH question. It is just maybe a thought-provoking question. What are the limitations and what are the shortcomings of you just monitoring the stuff that happened bad for the month, like the number of accidents you have, number of environmental spills, number of workers leaving, etc. Then what is the limitation of just relying on the ones that are bad alone anyway, right? So I already did mention at the start that NEBOSH would require you to know 4 of the active monitoring techniques. I know it was on the slides. I did not decide to do it when I saw it on the first slide there. Right, so you have 4 techniques. You should probably learn about 4 of these. You have 5 here, by the way, but learn about 4 by heart, and you need to know a little bit of details in each one. So 4 types of active monitoring. You have audits, you have inspection, sampling, surveys, tours, and let's see what the other side. So we have a breakdown of an audit here. All of these are common exam questions as well. So what is an audit? A systematic approach towards identifying the strengths and weaknesses of an organization, normally conducted annually. Full investigation through the organization of health and safety policy, procedures, safe system of work, risk assessments, etc. So you have a definition here. What is an audit? The systematic way of looking at the strengths and weakness of the organization management system. You do have some questions on this, but in chapter 6 of your textbook, right? So simple questions may be here, like coming out of the last point here. A very simple question is to identify 8 documents that an auditor can request. So that is what I started to do to the bottom here, right? So reference to safety documents anyway, right? So the health and safety policy is a document. You can say policies for emergency egress, procedures for coming to work on days of work, risk assessments, and if you can give any 3 other documents. Again if you did the session on policy, which is recording 10 in another video, you'd have an idea of it. But it's basically any 8 safety documents that an auditor can ask for. Even what we are talking about here, the company's KPI, the key performance indicators, for example, the accident record, inspection record, inspection certificates, licenses, etc. Right, so you can have a go at that. I did some there, and you can try to finish off that, a bit. So there is, like I said, another lesson. Hopefully, if we're able to finish off this one this week, I'll be able to put up the one on audit next week sometime. And again, that would be the last of the NGC one. I guess what we can use the videos for then is just a bit of review till life hopefully goes back to normal. Right, so we have inspections here. So a systematic, more in-depth study of all health and safety aspect within a specific area of the workplace. And I guess all of this you could have a read up. I'll just do the explanation. So really the inspection is different from the audit in that inspection is more specific, right? And that's kind of putting it mildly anyway, because when I say more specific, it's more specific to one particular thing or one particular aspect. You see, whereas an audit is holistic, an inspection would just examine one particular element. So for example, if you are looking at an audit may look at documents, equipment, working conditions, etc. But an inspection, for example, if you're going to inspect, let's say you're going to inspect a forklift, right? You are just inspecting one safety equipment then, or one safety aspect. So you find that the audit is more holistic, in that the audit may look at, for example, the safe system of work, the manufacturer's instructions for using the forklift, the procedures the companies are using. But if you are just inspecting the forklift for day-to-day activity, what you could be looking at is things like the condition of the tires, the fluid levels, light, brakes, etc., the function of the seat belt, the condition of the driver's seat. So an inspection would more or less look at one aspect, whereas audit would look at the whole system, right, in terms of work equipment, not just forklifts, but maybe all of the work equipment. So formally conducted formal inspection by a nominated competent person. Inspections are more frequently conducted than audits. Audits are typically once or twice for the year based on the company, but inspections can be done before the start of every shift. An inspection can be done once a day, right? So demonstrates for that. Again, we have the idea that an inspection is actually Alright, so sampling, a planned partial inspection of specific safety aspect. It is a quicker version of a safety inspection. You partially assess something, example an area or piece of work equipment, and the results indicate whether or not it is acceptable or not. It is like checking a reasonable number of items in a batch to confirm how good or not the batch is, right? So sampling a planned partial inspection of a particular safety aspect, right? So I really don't want to use the idea of PPE, but again, that is what I have come up with now anyway, right? So if you are doing, let's say you are inspecting a batch of, let's say, harnesses, right? Really a lot, maybe about 100 harnesses. It may be an idea for the sampling there, right? So for example, right, and you assess those 1 in every 10 turns out to be good, or 2 in every 10. Assumption that, so it's a planned partial inspection of a specific safety. They didn't like the harness because really that they do in the workplace inspected, right? I think maybe a good idea for this could have been something like sample of water, have it tested, and then you make an assumption about supposed to be with a contaminant, with lead, and you can as well. So sampling probably more beneficial there for we have to check everything before, especially PPE, before we use it, right? The problem that you all are seeing with some of the words dropping is because the microphone keeps dropping. So every time you see for example, like me saying okay or right, here we go again, it's because the microphone would have dropped, and I'm trying just to keep the session going anyway, right? So you may want to just see if you could fill in those blanks there. I'll try not to make it, if something is important, I would have to review it again, but once it was just words that I was saying, I'll just keep on going anyway, right? So surveys, this is a very detailed examination of a particular safety aspect, example fire, PPE, etc. A safety survey usually results in a formal report and an action plan to deal with any findings, right? So surveys, I think you could probably more or less think of this, for example, like maybe like a questionnaire. You could think of this probably like maybe they're doing a survey on back pains, and they can ask a question, for example, like how on a scale of is your back pain, right? So it's a very detailed, like there would have been, I guess, manual handling if we are talking about back pains anyway, right? Last one here, tours. So a casual, often unplanned inspection by a safety officer or advisor or supervisor, regularly conducted, quick and easy to organize, check work instructions are being adhered to, check housekeeping, observes general working practices, right? So the first one is probably all you need, often unplanned inspection by a safety officer or supervisor as a mean to seeing if the workers are doing what they have to do, right? At the other levels, there is actually another type of tours that is actually planned, right? And that of course is not covered in level 3, but you do have the benefits of having a planned tour at the same time, right? Remember, the aim of this though would have been just to get 4 proactive means of measuring performance, and I review those again. I think it actually had 5 though. We had a bit on audits, you had inspection, survey, sampling, tours, right? So you need to know 4 of those, or 4 to the 5 for a typical question paper, right? I'll skip this one. This is just what would have been a feature of those 4 types of means of measuring performance. There's a bit on workplace inspection here again, right? And we can have a read of that. I would skip some of that out. Maybe I can come back to this one. This was simply saying that one of the best ways of doing an inspection is by using, right? So we have good, bad, or maybe I did talk about the idea of doing an inspection be like a record of what you would have done for that. So the microphone did drop twice there last minute anyway. Outcomes of the inspection, typically a report will be generated and be sent to managers or to a manager. This latter part of it, I think I would just barely mention because this had to do with your project, right? So we already did a video for that anyway, and this in fact was the format for the old project, which we are not doing anymore, right? So I guess if you have this PowerPoint, you could ignore the latter piece of this. However, it may be a good idea still to run through it for everyday life, right? In the everyday world, if there is an inspection, then you normally do a report and send it to a manager, right? So you normally will have it in the title page, summary, the main body, conclusion, recommendation, right? I mean, NEBOSH has taken this format out of the project now, but again, for I guess a safety writing up a report, they will still need to know how to do that for the everyday, right? So I'm not quite sure, like I said, we are not really editing these videos how it came across. The microphone did drop a lot in the first maybe 5 minutes, and it dropped twice, counting my blessings now, in the last couple of minutes, right? But the bulk of the lesson is here. Like I said, if there's anything important I felt that would have been cut out, I would just review that piece of it, right? So I think in summary, what I really wanted you all to, in summary, what you had to know here, you had to know 4 types of active monitoring techniques: audit, inspection, sampling, surveys, tours. Just in about 5 anyway, right? And if we didn't get to cover all of them, you needed to know about 8 of the reactive types, right? So I could tell you those now. I don't think we really touched on 8, right? But we did touch on some, right? And the idea would have been to come up with whatever is negative for the company, right? So the reactive monitoring types would be whatever is negative for the company. So you normally would have here, but we said this one over and over again on the lesson, right? So we said the number of accidents you have, right? So anything negative like that would be a reactive means of measuring performance. So you could have number of environmental spills, anything that is negative, right? The number of workers complaining about maybe working, I guess, practices or maybe condition, right? A high staff turnover or a high number of staff turnover, again, will be seen as something that is negative, right? A fine from the health and safety executive, if the company would have been fined, right? FINE, that would have been seen as something negative. So that's 5, right? 6, a high number of civil claims against the company, right? That would be employees suing the company. That's something negative. You could have property damage is a very simple one. Number 7, high number of property damage. You could even have, for example, the loss of a license, right? So the company would have lost, let's say, an ISO certification or a store certification. Once it's something negative, it goes down as a reactive means or a reactive indicator. And once they record that, then it becomes a reactive means of measuring what is happening in the company, right? There is also another question. Again, I don't have that on this slide. Again, it's really past paper questions anyway that I'm remembering, right? There is actually one. Don't know if you want to have a go at this one. I would. It's not on this slide. I'm just trying to line up this slide with where I think you can get the information on, right? So other than knowing 4 active indicators and about 8 reactive, another question that has been popping up, but you can pull the information from here, right? Is the differences between an inspection and an audit. If you can come up with 4 of those differences between an inspection and an audit. So we mentioned some here. For example, the inspections is more specific. It's a one particular aspect, whereas the audit is more holistic, right? We mentioned audits could be conducted annually, so that really, every day or the start of every shift. So that's 2 differences, right? I'll try not to do all, right? But if you think about them, for example, a really simple one is this one, that an audit will take a longer time, right? An audit would probably take about 3 days to get done, whereas an inspection could be done like in 5-10 minutes anyway, right? So again, if you have a look at this, read it up in the textbook. If you have the PowerPoint, you could look at it. If not, I'll have Janet send it for you anyway, right? And see if you can have a go at that one. 4 differences between an audit and an inspection. I've given about 3 already anyway. You can actually just put it on Google possibly and research it. See if you can put that into the comment section, or maybe you can do it on your I guess a Word document. Send it for me when I have the students still doing your work over the next 5 weeks anyway, right? So I guess I'll close off on this one. I didn't quite like how the microphone kept dropping on this particular video. Of course, this is not like I said a free software. This is something that the school paid for, so we didn't expect to have all of these issues with it still, right? But at least the bulk of it is there, so you can have a go at it. Please, when you look at the lesson, just sign in, say that you'd have looked at it, put your name so that we can start to cross it off on the register who would have seen it. So this lesson is really what should be done this Saturday here, which will be, today is the I think today is the 17th. This would have been the Saturday of that week anyway. Remember, the office is open again. If you are willing to come by and drop off your homework, pick up your handout, etc., just let us know before. Remember, we can be contacted 489-2426, email address samuel_shadrach@yahoo.com. And this would wrap it up though for the certificate students. You all had 2 videos out this week. You have also the one in the risk assessment if you haven't seen it yet. So this would be, this full week of work would have been covered, right? Next week will be another video possibly on the following chapter. But we are looking for the follow through now on the students part, and that you have to do these questions that I mentioned. If you have your book as well, you can do anything again at the back of the chapter and send it in for me. I am still looking forward to seeing some of the projects, right? As much as we have the time now, I guess those of us who are home to copy at the office, I would be able to look at it and give you some corrections. So this is Mr. Shadrach again signing out. Hopefully we'll see each other this week, if not next week, with another video presentation. All the best. Bye.